Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 819. We explore Legends from 1986, part 3.
From the sleepy suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio, there are assembled the world's two greatest podcast hosts, created from the cosmic legends of the universe. Sean Whalen.
Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast. I'm a big fan of variant colors. My love for Batman is that stuff. Let's talk some comics.
And Jim Segulin.
How's it going, eh? You know me and Superman. I'm really loving what they're doing. Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast.
Their mission, to discuss DC Comics in books, movies, and television several times a month in 1 to 3 hour episodes. And to serve all mankind.
Outstanding.
Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of you-know, and of course the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to continue our third part of our Legends discussion with Cosmic Boy number 2, Justice League of America number 259, The Fury of Firestorm number 56, Blue Beetle number 9, and Legends number 4. Once again, joining us is longtime friend of the show, Ken Nabbe, as a special guest to analyze this series. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
I'm really happy to see that the Absolute Green Arrow number 1 is getting a second printing.
Yeah.
That was actually, I was like, I'm really happy how strong the Absolute universe is doing. And second printing, issue number 1, 38% off, only $4.95. Plus, we have Absolute Power Omnibus Hardcover, 38%, only $93. And we've got the Clayface Celebrity Dirt, issue 1 of 6, 48% off, only $207. Thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to shout out once again the DC Finest series. And one of the reasons why I'm so high on this is the unique books that are being collected. DC Finest, Sergeant Rock, The Rock of Easy Company, trade paperbacks, out and available for you. And it collects Sergeant Rock's first appearance in GI Combat number 68 and his lead stories from Our Army at War 81 to 122. 616 pages, and has so many great artists, including Joe Kubert, that are a part of this, and great writing talent. This is $39.99 regularly, 48% off, only $20.79 for 616 pages of classic Sergeant Rock. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Mr. Segulin, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plotline, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Green Lantern, let you and I destroy that space junk.
Gentlemen, this week I actually got a little gaming thing I want to talk about. That Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight came out.
Yeah, my wife's asking for it. But Katie and Irish play the Lego games consistently. They've been playing Lego Star Wars for a while.
It's really good.
Is it? I mean, my favorite's been with Lego Batman 3, which had the entire Super Friends in it, and when you switch over to Superman, it plays the theme, and when you switch over to Wonder Woman, it plays the theme. Yeah, so it's like, okay.
Cool.
This one, it has the mechanics of Arkham built in.
Okay.
But it has all the Lego tropes, where it's like you're beating everything up and like trying to grab as many Lego pieces as you can, that kind of stuff, looking for the hidden gold and red Lego bricks. And so all that stuff's there. But on top of it, it goes through like the history of the Dark Knight. But
interesting.
It kind of follows the Nolan films.
Okay.
Kind of. But incorporates the Burton films. It incorporates comics. It incorporates animation.
Okay.
You start off as young Bruce, and you just kind of go from there. So
I finally watched The Batman on the plane on the way back. I had never seen it.
Wow.
Through it. Yeah.
What'd you think?
It's like, I think it was interesting. I'm not sure if I liked the Batman getting knocked out twice in the same movie. That was part of I'm like, I know it's supposed to be depowered, not as much technology Batman, but I'm like, this is like he got sucker punched twice, It's like, okay, guys.
I liked the one thing I enjoyed about it is I felt like it was the first Detective Comics movie, if I'm making it.
Yeah. That's very much a Detective Comics spin on a Batman movie.
Yeah. So I thought, like, if you're going to do that and lean heavily into that, I hope the sequel leans heavily into that too. Just because I've liked
felt like it had two endings. Because like he gets Falcone, and it's like, oh, we still got to deal with the Riddler.
Right.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, so it can be interesting to see how they build off of that into the sequel and what that.
Yeah, I still haven't figured out which is my favorite Catwoman yet. So,
yeah,
it's like, okay, Kravitz isn't bad.
No, I thought she did a good job.
Yeah, very much more year one Catwoman than Dark Knight Catwoman or Silver Age Selena Kyle or any other craziness that's out there.
Gotham Catwoman still is one of my favorites.
I didn't sit through Gotham. I never watched. I was so annoyed at that time period when that came out. It's like, how much change do we need to make on stuff? What's the ongoing joke? There's still, I think there's a prehistoric tribe in the Amazon that's never met humans that still knows the origin of the Batman. So
it was a good show. I'll be honest with you. It was a good show. You may want to, just watch it because I liked it as a show as well as a Batman story. So there was some cool stuff in there, and they had some good acting in it. That was
not like I have a whole lot of room to talk. I watched Lois and Clark all the way through, so
it's that. So actually, that's a very good comparison. Where it's not beholden to the comics, but yet it doesn't go out of its way to throw things out the window.
Yeah, but does it have Terry Hatcher?
It does not. No. The cool thing about Gotham was my father watched it, which and you have to understand, my father and I never connected over comic books at all. It was this weird thing that I did on the side, and this was the conversation that happened. Is this what you liked all along? That is kind of cool.
My dad was watching some old movie. I can't remember which one it was, and I got a phone call. Hey, I don't get this. Can you explain this to me?
So it was, and actually that became the thing that started happening. A lot more when we got together. It was like, hey, I was watching Gotham this week. But yeah, Gotham was a really good show. It was that part, having that kind of connection with my dad was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that show. Anyway, why don't we jump into Legends and let's jump back on. This is our third week, so this is our halfway point, guys.
I know. I told Iris, I'm like, I'm going to be recording again tomorrow. And odds are next weekend as well.
Yeah, I was looking through this one, and I'm like, after this, we've got 2 more weeks that are similarly lined up. And then the final week, I think, is like 3 books or something like that in order to kind of hammer through it. But this was a good reading week. Starting off with Cosmic Boy. All the tie-ins, as this starts ramping up, I guess my memory was when we were talking about week 1 and some of the early tie-ins that clearly felt like filler issues. Mm-hmm. I was like, I'm hoping that this isn't like a lot of tie-ins that are like this, where they're the kind of the fill-ins. And this week was again like last week. I thought more story depth. The tie-ins all had value. Cosmic Boy is great.
And those first 2 ones, I mean, they were before the show, before the issue started. Mm-hmm. So it's like you really did not know what Legends was going to be,
right?
And now we're getting the tie-ins that we understand what those tie-ins are. Mm-hmm. If you go back and read that Batman, that detective prior to issue 1, there's a little more understanding of what they're trying to do.
Yes.
But it's just not nearly as prevalent as we see here. Now, going into Cosmic Boy, though, we've got 3 different artists on this book, which becomes very prevalent as we go through. And I'm trying to, I have no idea why there were 3.
Right.
Is it one of those that they were under a crunch? Did we have Giffen doing the big splash pages? Because, page 1 is very much a different style than a lot of the other pages are. That's why I wonder why why Giffen is separate versus Cullen and Smith. So that's why I was like, as I was looking at it first, going, okay, which pages was done by who, and why did we end up having this? But it's very cohesive. I mean, Levitz is still writing the thing. Yeah. So.
And the pages aren't bad. It's just
it's not jarring or anything.
No, but it is. Here's the thing. It'd be it would be wrong not to point it out because it's apparent.
Yeah.
I mean, when you do the page flips, a lot of that's like, whoa, but it's not bad art. I'm with you on the coherent storytelling. I enjoyed this quite a bit. This one is kind of this. It's funny in the reread. This one's a sleeper hit for me.
Oh yeah,
I forgot about it.
And I've mentioned in previous shows that I enjoyed the Cosmic Boy miniseries, and what they end up doing with Cosmic Boy, and if I mention yet again, tying into the death of Superboy, that how time has shifted. And this book, they very much, the Cosmic Boy's got some real issues as a expert of 20th century history, trying to compensate with what he knows and what he's been experiencing. Because if we read back in Cosmic Boy 1 that there was Hiroshima didn't happen, Nagasaki did not happen, which is not something I remember in the Legion history from that period. But we see here that it's a shock that Cosmic Boy that nuclear weapons were used in an aggressive format during the 20th century. And then you add in, when supposedly humans end up going to space, when we get extraterrestrial visitation, that kind of stuff. All that's out of whack here, which DC's setting up for the time shift and the realignment post-crisis.
And I love that. I actually really loved that they didn't just limit it to DC events. They went into real world events and tied them in. I thought that was a brilliant move. It added more substance to it. And I didn't remember any of that. It's funny reading this miniseries. It'd been so long since I'd read it. Yeah, I remembered the basic beats of Cosmic Boy being back and being here in this time frame and comparing it. I didn't remember all the real world events that were tied into this. And I thought that just added a depth of layer to this one that I really just enjoyed. Levitz's writing on this one, and he and Giffen, when they were together, there's magic with this storytelling.
Yeah, it was a great time for Legion.
Yeah.
The Baxter series and the newsprint. They had not gone to Tales yet, because remember, once the Baxter gets launched, the two books only operate in parallel for a very short time, maybe a year and a half, and then Legion of Superheroes, the newsprint edition, becomes Tales and becomes reprints of the Baxter edition, so that people in because they realized people who were buying just from newsstands were not getting the new stories. So
it's also a chance to take those stories and monetize them.
Well, yeah, that too.
I mean, I'm
being considerate.
Yeah, I'm not saying in a negative way. I'm saying there is everything you just said, but the layer on top of that, from a business standpoint, sometimes it's naughty to talk about comics as a business. I think we have to. I mean, in reality, as comic companies, and it's not a bad thing. Sometimes when it comes up, it's like, well, they do variant covers, and oh my gosh, they're just cash grabs and things like that. It's a business, and we can't keep getting these stories if they're not making money. So I'm never against what it's when it's just a cash grab and there's no substance. Tales of the Legion's it's not in and of itself just a cash grab. Yes, it gets these stories to a larger audience, and they're great stories, and gets more monetary value out of them, so we keep getting them. That part to me is gold. Do that.
Well, and this is before trade paperbacks.
Correct.
We did not have real good ways to reread storylines unless, we bought back issues. So trade paperback was not something that existed. This is almost like the existence of the television recap episode prior to DVD sets. Episode 6 would be the recap of what happened for anybody who had not, taped, the previous episodes. So it's something that's I think Kevin Smith made a joke about in his Clerks animated, episode 2 was the recap episode. So it's okay. Yeah, things that have just kids these days will never understand the idea of a recap episode, or a fact that a issue that they'd reprint stuff and put on the newsstand. So, or even a newsstand.
And the Tales book was cheaper.
Yes, yes, it was 75 cents versus the Baxter, which was $1.50. So, but it was also printed on the art. I was collecting both Tales of the Teen Titans and New Teen Titans at the same time before I realized they were reprints.
Yes.
And the artwork on the on the newsprint, just that Baxter stuff did not translate nearly as well.
No.
So
yeah, the Baxter stuff like spoiled you.
Oh yeah,
from going from newsprint to the Baxter, it definitely felt. I mean, we're used to it today, as far as the quality of the paper, but back in the day, going from newsprint to Baxter was like a big deal, and it was seeing the artwork in that capacity was really special.
And seeing some of these, all the trades were printed on white paper. I think I have one trade paperback in my collection, which is the Invasion trade paperback, which I think is one of the very first ones, and that was printed on newsprint.
Yeah.
So that you start looking at that versus, all the Titans, omnibus editions and trade paperbacks and the Judas contract, all that stuff is printed on white versus that off white, that more ivory look on newsprint. And even this book, Cosmic Boy, is printed on newsprint. So the colors really do pop on the white, even in the app itself. I don't even know if this is reprinted. Has this Cosmic Boy series been reprinted?
I don't
at all.
I don't know. Jim, go ahead.
I mean, I don't own it. So, and I traditionally own. I like to tell people that I have most of the 1980s reprint on my bookshelf.
One of the things I really digged about the Cosmic Boy series going on so far is I'm loving that we're getting these Legends tie-ins, but we're also getting this really cool story on who Cosmic Boy and Night Girl is. Because I'll be honest with you, with me and Legion, I didn't know about this couple, didn't know about them, didn't really even know about her. I knew who Cosmic Boy is because I know the big three of the Legion, but I didn't know about her, and I didn't know about their relationship or any of that stuff. So I was really enjoying, seeing how this connected to Legends. I thought that was awesome, but I really enjoyed just the interaction between them and just her development and me getting to understand who she is, as well as, getting a further insight into Cosmic Boy. That was something that for me, I was like, oh, this is cool. And it's reminded me of how much some of the tie-ins I liked with DC, how the tie-ins were, their own separate story, but also continued the overarching story. So this for me is like all of these tie-ins. I'm like, man, this is awesome. I'm loving this. I'm like, oh yeah, this happened. I gotta keep reminding myself, this isn't present day storytelling. This is back in the 80s. They first did it here. I was like, this is awesome, man.
I'm not.
Well, I do love how this issue happens at night, or where all the action happens at night. So Night Girl's got her full power set.
Yeah. So
she's launching cars through fences, and
I'm not seeing a reference to a trade.
And I'd be surprised if because it wasn't in the trade. It wasn't in the Legends trade paperback, because that's just all 6 issues. There's nothing else in that. Hence why we, it's like, let's grab it on the app.
And the omnibus is coming out. I'm wondering if that's the first time it's going to be physically collected.
Yeah, I got that on pre-order, so we'll see as it arrives.
But it's all the tie-ins are in there, so it's going to be in there.
Okay, I wonder if they're going to put anything else weird in there. If it's just the 13, 14, 16 books, or if it's going to have everything else.
As we know, there is some weird in there already.
Yeah.
Is it going to have anything weird? Yes.
Yes, it will. It will have. The question is it going to be stuff that wasn't originally bannered?
Yes, exactly. I do love their relationship in this, and the fact that, like, their infiltration when it's going on together, they do play off each other well.
Yeah.
Like, this really is, and this is exactly what I love from Legion. It is the relationships between the characters, both the friendships and the romantic relationships. They did a really good job of adding depth to those, where you actually wanted to see them together, teamed up, and honestly, the relationships were rocky from time to time, where they wouldn't always go smooth. They were very real world and grounded, because they could mess with the characters in a way that you couldn't some of your top tier characters. So it was the nice part about Legion was the fact that they felt more, you could get more attached to them, if it makes sense. Kind of, it was a lot of what I liked what was going on in Teen Titans, like Corey and Dick and stuff like that. And Donna Troy's various relationships and all of that. I actually really enjoyed this aspect of some of these characters versus the top tier ones in DC, because they seemed more willing to go to these places. I do love when they meet that scientist. I love who he is. I love that he's an ancestor of Cosmic Boy. I love that they say, I know I'm jumping to the reveal at the end, but I think it's something in going through and reading this, I forgot his connection to Cosmic Boy. I loved that was a part of this, because his big concern with the space travel thing is, hey, if this doesn't play out, you and I might not, like all of this has to happen or else we've got a problem. It's very Back to the Future. And
right.
And I loved it though. I mean, I love that idea of, hey, there's some consequences here. If none of this plays out the way I'm expecting, we're here now. Is there something to go back to? I would be very worried about that if I was him. And I loved that was a problem.
This is pre-Zero Hour, but post-Crisis. So do we really know what the canon DC time travel theory is?
Right.
Is it grandfather paradox? Is it, separate universe? I mean, once Kingdom Come is done, we then have hyper time. But we don't have any of that. We have not defined hypertime yet. Remember, we've collapsed all the universes, so we're on Earth Sigma at this point. That DC doesn't know what they're doing yet on what time travel theory is going to be in a new collapsed universe. So
it had a sense of danger because of it, though.
Yeah.
It really worked well in this storyline, even with what we know now as far as what DC's rules are. I like in this story, it feels like it's the unknown, and what does all this mean? What is it going to happen to us? It's a really good story, leaning heavily into the fact that sometimes having no rules and having that mystery is a good thing. This is an example of that. I think this story benefits from, I don't know what all that means.
Yeah.
That's where time travel stuff is fun.
It's funny with the astronaut, because you talked about the reveal. When they did the flash on the name, I was like, I think that's Cosmic Boy's last name, but I wasn't sure. I
had to go look it up.
I had to look it up.
His first appearance or not, and it is. And so I was like going, okay, I think that's what they're trying to allude to.
Yeah.
But, because Rock Krim is Krim's a very shortened name, Even my last name was shortened. So it was very much, okay, this is what we're starting to look at and how things are going to pan out.
The scientists at the research center, really trying to stand their ground against the rioting mob. And you just knew, that just looks like it's not going to go well.
No, they wrote this up, and going, when we read Firestorm later on, how different rioters were handled in different books. I do like the no nukes in space. Yeah. It's like, how are you gonna? Solar and nuclear, it's not like you can burn gas in space, but whatever,
Wait, that's another rule that nobody seemed to know back then.
One of the things I liked about this one, again, the handling of the rioters. They could have very easily turned the electric fence on and zapped them.
Right.
But they didn't want to be the people who zapped to zap these people. And it was one of those, it's a problem that's a lot of times security, law enforcement, even sometimes military. They have this would be a lot easier if I could just zap them. This would be a lot easier if I could just use force, but they can't. Their hands are tied on this. And I like seeing that here, where it's one of those things where we're about to take a beating. We're about to get hurt here, but we got to do it. And for me, that was kind of a cool, that was a kind of a cool thing to see. But also then you get that really great hero moment when the heroes step up and they start doing to protect the people. This was a really cool sequence. I love this.
I'm in charge of the head of security, or security supervisor reports to me because I'm in charge of operations now at my district. And if you were to ask people that are unsung heroes and often get beat down by, everyone's got a criticism of, it's our security team. And I've got to say, those guys on a daily basis, and girls on a daily basis, have to deal with some really tough decision making in order to try and keep the kids safe from themselves and from each other, as far as when things get ramped up. And seeing that, boy, did this read true As far as, because you wonder if they went back and they saw what was happening here, if they could have like seen a glimpse of, no, what's really going to happen is overwhelming numbers are coming over the fence. Yeah. I wonder what they would have done.
Right.
Because this goes haywire fast. And I don't think what they initially thought that they were seeing was going to be this. And you have to make tough decision calls in that position. And I do think that's one of the things that security and police and anybody that's involved in the role of protection, when they're trained to try not to hurt people, you have to make judgment calls at that point in time. And I really liked the reality of this one. You're right, Jim. We can't fry them. They don't know what they're doing and that type of thing. I loved how real that felt, because I do feel that would be a conundrum that you'd be in that position in a way that's easy for us as to watch them and go, well, why wouldn't they have flipped the switch? Because there's security. Their job is to protect people. They're trying to keep people out, but they're not trying to kill people. It's meant to be a deterrent, not a murder weapon. And I really liked that was played into this whole thing. They don't know what they're doing. It was good.
Oh, yeah. It goes sideways fast.
Yes.
And as we look at these issues, as we go deeper and deeper into the Legends storyline, the riots are getting bigger and bigger.
Yes.
Or they're happening in smaller and smaller towns. Mm-hmm. So it's starting to proliferate quite a bit. And you can see that some people are resistant to Godfrey's suggestions and others are not so. Because even when we start looking at it, it's like you'll find lone individuals in these groups are like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you doing this? This does not make any sense. And we start seeing that the aura of Godfrey becomes stronger and stronger the more people that he has.
I hate to go here, and I'm going to do it at a very limited level, but there are some parallels to today. In the sense that you've got two groups right now that are digging in on one ideology versus another right now. And really, there's multiple circumstances throughout this. If like, we had shades of gray here and people embraced that and maybe started talking a little bit, we could probably get along if you tried understanding each other along the way. I actually loved that this story did that, because I think there's a reality of that. With Godfrey's manipulation, people are digging in on both sides, and they're digging in hard on both sides. And I love seeing those parallels. Comics, I think at their best, have always reflected real life. There's things we can learn from it and kind of go, I don't know, maybe just talk, have a conversation about this. Maybe it's okay to feel different things, and maybe it's okay to have conversations around those different things. And I love that about this. Like I said, I'm not trying to get overly political.
Oh, yeah.
But I would be remiss if I didn't say, oh, there's some things to talk about here that are similar to what's going on right now.
And again, just remembering back to 86. Mm-hmm. In the late 80s, this is really the birth of that kind of political movement. And by political movement, I'm talking both sides are doing this. And I know you said that as well, Sean. Both sides are doing this where they're really digging in deep and they're saying there's no middle ground. If you remember back to, 80s, late 80s, this kind of ideology started developing in both sides. And they both really stopped, we started having us versus them mentality really started popping up and started growing. So it's awesome that the comics recognize this and threw this out there, and we're seeing today where it's been escalated over all these years, and we have a lot of issues where there's no communication. We've had government shutdowns. We've had, freezes on, important infrastructures, people not getting paid because the two different parties could not meet and could not come up with a compromise, and we're seeing that present day, and again, it's on both sides. So if you're one side or the other, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're both wrong. We need to have compromise. We need to have communication amongst ourselves, and you can't get everything you want. It's called a compromise for a reason. You got to give up a little bit. And I'd love seeing this being told in the comics on how dangerous this can get, and also how dangerous a mob mentality can get. We've seen so many riots, in our lifetime, and in the US and across the world, where it was just a single spark that ignited and it just grew. And, sometimes people say, oh, I was on the right side of that. Like, I'm not saying you weren't right, not saying you're wrong. I'm saying when you start getting a mob mentality, it's incredibly hard to control. Right. You could have person A who's saying one thing, person B who's saying the complete different, and they both think they're on the same page, so they're both running in there. And we had a couple great lines in here where they're saying, hey, just be calm. Let's talk it out. No, burn the building to the ground. They wanted to level this building. This wasn't about, hey, do you guys have nukes? Are you going to hurt the planet? No, they're like, you're going to hurt the planet. We're going to kill you all. It went from 0 to 100 over immediately. And that's the kind of stuff you get from a mob mindset. I love reading this one.
Well, we're adding mob mindset, and then we're also adding a meta power that's driving it as well. So, I mean, it's some column A and some column B on this one, which is why we start seeing it much more prevalent earlier than we would normally see. But yeah, the as we get deeper into these issues, the mobs get uglier and uglier. And I mean, the Firestorm issue is pretty crazy.
God, that's an awesome one.
Yeah. And even the next Legends, when Godfrey starts getting entire groups together, and even the president's telling him to stand down. So, it's like, okay.
I like that during this fight that they tried to keep their civilian clothes on. They were trying to stay under the radar,
right?
To try not to incite this further as being, a superhero thing. All of that was, the reveal of him being Cosmic Boy, and then finally saying that, all right, enough already. I've had enough. It's time to go all Cosmic Boy and all this. And she does the same thing. And I really liked how that played out in all of this. That 1986, don't count Cosmic Boy out yet. I loved, there's pages in this. It's funny. We talked earlier about the different art teams in this. Like that, I thought was a great page. I just loved the artwork in that. This really is a great story for Legion fans and people new to the concept of Legion. I've mentioned that last episode, and I consistently feel that with this book. I think it's doing a really, really good job of being reflective. It's nice because we're forced to, as readers, be on, like, riding along with Cosmic Boy.
Right.
And I love stories that do that, where we're learning through the universe through his eyes. And you can't help but feel connected to him because we're seeing it the way he is as you go through. It's really good storytelling. It's a great way to connect readers to characters. And I'm finding this to be easily one of my favorite miniseries, or one of my favorite series that actually ties into this because of the way it's written and how well Cosmic Boy's handled. I mentioned Sleeper Hit before, only because I remember enjoying this. I didn't remember loving it as much as I'm loving it this time around. And I think it's because of how much I've forgotten. There's so much of it that feels fresh, but it holds up. When we're talking about contemporary issues and things like that, and connecting this classic 86 story with that, that's good comics. That's good storytelling in general. When you can look back to literature and make connections, I think that's a sign of a story that they're actually got some well-developed themes in here, that there's something to learn about. And I love fiction that does this. It's really, really well done.
No, I got a question for you guys on Cosmic Boy. Now, he's magnetics, and can he do the manipulation of humans because of the iron in our blood, or no?
No, he's not Magneto level.
Okay.
He doesn't do any of that crazy Magneto stuff. He is much more of a Polaris level.
Okay.
Than a Magneto level.
Because I digged when he's, going, picking up the cars and just using them to shuffle people around. Saying, and I love the people's reaction to having a car coming at them. They're like, okay, we're going to give up now and we're going to retreat. And they ran off. Again, there's the influence of, you got Godfrey's influence, but it's not a complete mind control. So
no, it sounds like it's fairly easy to break.
Yeah.
If self-preservation ends up becoming an issue. It's not like people are going to throw themselves on swords based off of Godfrey's push. And you've already got to be radicalized before Godfrey ends up pushing you for you to go that direction.
Right.
And remember, Rock is not flying using his magnetism. He is flying because of his Legion flight ring.
Right.
Same thing with Night Girl. So he doesn't have like Magneto ability to cause himself to fly. He needs the Legion flight rings. So,
You mentioned something I think is interesting, Ken, when you talk about the Legion in general. It is the idea that keeping them from being overpowered, because I think,
Right.
along the way, you do discover new things about the Legionnaires. They do gain additional abilities and skills, but they stayed pretty conservative with them as a character group. That's why in this, what's working so well in this miniseries, I kept mentioning how much I'm loving riding along with Cosmic Boy, Night Girl just as much. And you really feel like they both, in order for them to survive this whole experience, they do both need to be there, which I think is an example of what I love about the Legion. There's nobody that like, hey, if they're on the scene, you don't need anybody else.
Well, and Legionnaires had one power, even when they did Ultra Boy. Ultra Boy's got 3 powers, but they can only use one at a time.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's like, it was very much as they were being designed that they were not overpowered. Of course, you had Superboy.
Right.
You had Silver Age Superboy. I can move planets level Superboy, but still it was the Legion themselves. I mean, really, Chameleon Boy might be the most overpowered Legionnaire in the grand scheme of things.
Fair.
Yeah. But I mean, Durlan's end up changing quite a bit after the Invasion miniseries. So how they operate and how things go and how their power set works.
Jim, you never read Invasion, did you? I know I've probably asked this redundant question like a million times.
Invasion's an interesting one.
Yes.
Might be on the list for next year.
That might be one that we do, yes, down the road. Interesting is a strong word. I mean,
it introduces the meta gene.
Yeah.
Basically, it makes every DC hero that's not an alien a mutant.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad. You have to have the meta gene and then be doused in radioactive chemicals to be a superhero.
Okay. They were playing off the mutant popularity at the time.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was trying to explain why certain people become heroes and why certain people don't.
Right.
Like the Dominators do. I think it's 1 in 100, might be 1 in 1,000 has the meta gene.
Didn't Green Arrow have the meta gene too? Like, wasn't that like the weird thing that came out of that? Like all of
Snapper Carr had the meta gene. That was the one that threw everybody for a loop.
Yeah.
He had weird powers there for a short time because the Dominators take a bunch of humans and then try to kill them all. And those who survive are the ones with the meta gene. It's a very interesting, Invasion had to exist because they had to explain why the Legion of Superheroes existed. Mon-El comes out of that. There's a few things that happen. Valor comes out of the Invasion because they had to rebuild what created the Legion of Superheroes, and Superboy didn't exist. So
let's talk about Chapter 9, if we could, a little bit of Justice League of America number, was it 259, I believe?
Yeah, 259.
Yeah, and this one,
the not so death of Gypsy.
Well, and so let's just go right to that. So I don't know, in my mind, I had that they wiped out everybody in this one. I forgot the way that they handled Gypsy, and I actually applaud it because
the fact that Ivo had imprinted his same challenges and questioning of killing Gypsy onto his androids.
Yes.
Made perfect sense on why they didn't kill her. While Vibe was an asshole, he got killed.
Yes.
Yeah.
When we first started reading this, I was like, oh boy, it's going to be interesting reading this Justice League. Because again, I've never read it before because everybody always told me, don't do it. I loved this issue. I absolutely loved it. This was a brilliant story, and I love the explanation and even the groundwork they laid. Ivo's dealings with that's his robot psychologist, psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. It has been one of those things where every time he gets in, they're setting a little bit more going on inside the head of Ivo, and then this robot who's picks up on Ivo's guilt about killing people, that killing people is wrong. He knows it, but he's a little bit crazy, so he's not accepting it. And the robot picks up, and the robot's able to say, no, this is wrong, and fakes the death. I was like, oh my God, I loved this story.
It'd be remiss if we didn't mention J.M. DeMatteis, just as a... Yeah. Jim, you know what else he wrote, don't you?
What?
You know what else he wrote, don't you?
Yeah.
Craven's Last Hunt?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, this is a top tier writer. What's insane is, this is going to be a weird thing to say, I feel like we don't hear his name as much as we should, because I feel like this is a writer that everything J.M. DeMatteis does, pretty much, when I read it up, I love it. And it's playing around with like some deep concepts and things. It's not one of the, we've got this like short list of writers that tend to pop up on everybody's list.
Yeah.
This writer should be on that list. Absolutely should be on that list. And I rarely hear it. And I want to note it because I feel this is a great example of, this is the Detroit era had some issues, and this one, I remember jumping on this and reading all of these issues. I read the first one with Vibe and loved it, then jumped onto this, and Jim, you're right. This is a great issue. And I didn't remember, all these years later, I didn't remember, oh yeah, Gypsy survives this. I was trying to remember how she came, because Gypsy does come back in the future. I was trying to remember how all that came about, but I forgot that she actually did survive this. And the reasons why, this is really smart writing. You could have phoned this in and just blatantly killed everybody. That wouldn't have been as interesting. What it was is, I love that each issue is very personal to the robots, to Ivo's imprint, to your point, Ken.
Right.
I loved this level of taking a look at, we're in an era of artificial intelligence right now, right? Where we've got some concerns about artificial intelligence. I love using AI as far as a time saver and all that. It is interesting, though, as I'm talking to AI, because that's what you do when you can, how much I'm really having conversations with AI. You see this, and I'm like, this is not that far off from where we are at right now. It's interesting to be reading this story and seeing this laid out. It's like some of the Bond gadgets, right? That used to be so like, we're never going to have that, to like, our technology's beyond that now.
Right.
And I feel like this is that kind of conversation. It is fun to read this now.
Well, what's the one thing in this issue that dates it? What truly dates this issue? What event happens in this issue that truly dates it into the mid 80s?
Oh, good, Jim.
She's hitchhiking.
Oh, yes. Yes. You never see people hitchhiking nowadays.
No. Now we just get into strangers' cars after we've gotten it on an app.
Right.
We do.
Yes. And we wait. And we pay.
We wait for
we pay for it.
Some stranger on the internet to pick us up. Yeah. When I was reading, I'm like, oh, wow, hitchhiking. Wow, this dates it. This dates it pretty hard.
Yes. Very true. I can't remember the last time I saw somebody trying to hitchhike, much less.
Yeah. It's one of those, okay. She knows full well that this guy might not be on the level, but she got in his car anyway.
But also, she's a Justice League, so she's like, I can handle myself. He tries something, and but not safe thing to do.
Little did she know he was an android, that maybe she couldn't handle herself. Because if he would not have had that crisis of conscience, she would have
been dead.
Yeah, she'd be dead.
He had her flat out.
I liked the storytelling in the beginning with her friend, where she was reconnecting her friend with her family.
Yeah, Pam, I remember reading the 257 where Zatanna leaves the League. I mean, that was a big issue, because that meant that only Martian Manhunter was left of the original League. And of course, I forgot that none of the current League knew who Ivo was. None of the Detroit League had any dealings with him. So Vixen, I mean, she goes ape shit on Martian Manhunter for not telling him. And that's the thing. It's like Grant Morrison. After reading, I read all of Grant Morrison's JLA in one sitting when I was laid off the first time. So a buddy of mine lent me all the trades, and every time John Jones would say, "This is the Martian Manhunter on the JLA telepathic link," would just get on my nerves. It's like, yeah, okay, you don't need to announce it every time. But it's something that Morrison put together that no one did previously using Martian Manhunter's power. He's a telepath. He could have linked everybody together. He would know where Gypsy is if he really wanted to, which is just some writers understanding the power sets of the teams that they've got and some writers not. But, Morrison did use different characters' powers in much different ways than other writers had. So it's good points. So
now I did kind of, it was weird. I liked and also was kind of thrown a little bit by, just they're dealing with, the great death of their friend. They're dealing with all these so they're being irrational. And I liked because of Vixen and Steel big time in these sequence. Now, I liked it because I understand they're dealing with the grief. I disliked it because I don't, especially my dealings with Vixen, she wouldn't have reacted that way. But this was back then, and I get she's a different person during this league. So initially it did throw me off, but I also liked it because, this is probably the first real hero friend of theirs that's dead that they're dealing with. And I liked seeing them have emotional reactions to it, but it is one of those things where you're like, yes and no at the same time.
Well, as we covered last episode, this is the first member of the Justice League who had died in action.
Yeah.
So this is new. And the kicker is like, we don't really talk about, they don't really give us a real time in here, but I'm assuming we're only 24, 48 hours after Vibe dying that we're now dealing with Gypsy, and Gypsy's, this is fresh. And they're upset. Two, am I next?
And John knows who the killer is.
Yeah, and none of the rest of them know anything about this guy.
Yeah, right.
He's explaining to Mazo, he's explaining the piece, and Ivo still, off his rocker, killing current league just to tick off the previous league.
Yeah.
Yeah, is he doing this because he doesn't think he's got the power set to deal with the original leaguers? But this is still post-crisis. So how much of the original league's actions...
They address some of what you're saying, though, and so that question's a good one, because I actually really like his rationalization is it isn't that he wants to kill them. It's kind of almost like Wrath of Khan, where what he really wants to do here is like, let's kill some of these guys because of what it's going to do to the league. So it's not, I don't know if it's necessarily about his power set as much as, no, I want them to suffer. I mean, it really is vicious what he's doing. He's got nothing personal against this particular league. They are a means to an end. If I kill them off, look what it is going to do to the league. It's going to trash the name. It is going to really hurt the heroes at a time where what's going on in the world is a thing. Martian Manhunter, who's the only one that's connected with Ivo, is like, yeah, this upsets me too, but I can't do anything because we got this presidential edict. Like, your guy was just killed.
Yeah, John is he's very rules oriented in this one.
Yes.
And I don't remember it because they still had not defined post-crisis. Superman and Wonder Woman are not founding members of the Justice League. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman is replaced with Black Canary, and Martian Manhunter is now a founding member of the Justice League. So they hadn't gone to that point yet. So we're still, how many adventures did they have with Ivo? Because they show Ivo fighting Superman in the panel, but again, Superman had only appeared maybe 1 or 2 years before Legends.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot. This is another paradox book, I guess you could say. They did not, they hadn't defined what Superman's early history was going to be outside of he doesn't appear, and there's no Superboy. He doesn't appear in Metropolis till his early 20s. So.
Yeah, that's where the history, we talked about it last episode, history of the DC universe at the time became critical. Because it started to clarify some of this. Because you're right, when you're reading this, it's kind of like, well, how much happened here in that time frame, and what's still legit and what's not?
And here, there wasn't a lot of people who had a lot of, you couldn't go back and read stuff unless you had it in trade. Like I said, there's no trades. So unless you had the back issues, you couldn't really go back and reference this stuff. And good luck trying to reference, where somebody appeared without a copy of Who's Who. But, New 52, when they relaunched and everything, they had these paradox moments. It got uglier because people had trades, people had the internet, it's like, no, you can't have Dick only have been with the Titans for so many years, and the math doesn't line up. And here, same thing, just not nearly as much outrage. I would almost want to read the letter. Well, you're not going to, because the letter column would have been 4 months in the rears, and spoilers, JLA ends.
Yes.
So you're not going to have the letter column on. Well, almost would the letter column if they would have brought that up or not. And, even 86. I would have been on my Commodore 64, maybe been doing some BBSing at that point. And that stuff, most of it was Star Trek boards, not a lot of comic stuff. So,
yeah, true. In the early days, it really did lean a lot more into sci-fi.
Right.
That was a lot more aligned with BBSs. Right. Comic books came a little later.
Yeah.
And wow, this whole bit, one of the things I do think that they did was smart was making John the one that was trying to stick to the rules, because what you needed to see with the Detroit League, like Steele's reaction, I needed that.
Yeah. Right.
And I needed him to be mad. I needed him to be driven. I needed him to be the one saying, I don't give a damn about the order.
Well, we need to see Steele's impulsive nature as we come into the next issue. Because we've set up, okay, Ivo's willing to kill. Ivo's robots are willing to be merciful. So when we come to Steele, what direction is it going to be?
Yeah. That again, going through this, I loved how, as I said, I love that they spared her and why they spared her. But, at the end of the issue, I was thinking, okay, what happens to Steele? What's going to be next? I was like, I like that. This was a great teaser for you because you got one killed, one not killed.
Right.
So now the whole ideology of, they can't kill off a hero, that's thrown out the window. But they've thrown out the idea that all of them must die. Right. So we've now have it set. So again, it leaves that what's going to happen next. And that for me was brilliant writing and setting up for the next story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember the background on Gypsy's family. I'd have to go back and, reread, Gypsy's first appearance. Because I'm not sure if this is a strange, like a Jubilee / Kitty Pryde kind of thing, or, did she run off on her own? But we started talking, is her identity tied to being a member of the Justice League, or is it tied to her own, her own idea? So, but yeah, John's not a happy camper in that last panel. And we haven't really played off John's invisibility power. Remember, he's got that too. So did he just suddenly appear there, or was he shapeshifting, or, how does he get there kind of thing?
This was a good ending of an issue. I like this ending, especially, as I said, the no dialogue with Gypsy. Again, I have no idea what's going on, but I'll be honest with you, this page made me want to find out. This issue has me wanting to go back and reread the Detroit League.
Well, they've got an omnibus edition. They've got the Detroit years out now.
I do want to point out the actual battle between Gypsy and the robot, the reveal of it being a robot. I thought that was incredibly well done. Gypsy's powers, turning invisible in order to try and escape. But I love that he was able to follow her heat signature. It was very 80s tech, where it was almost Terminator in
Well, she doesn't know he's an android yet. So throwing illusions at him is going to be the first thing she's going to do. And now, because the thing is, her cloaking is basically a hallucination for everybody else not seeing her.
Right.
Yeah. She's not really cloaking herself. She's just making everybody else not see her.
Right.
So that makes it a little bit more, as the android's like, oh, my optics are telling me one thing, but, my sensors are telling me something else. Where is all this going? And I didn't realize, I thought he had a gun in the car. I didn't realize it was coming out of his hands, which makes more sense as an android. The whole face thing. Ivo's, he's got some issues.
Freaky, man.
And he has got some serious issues. with his, his body horror kind of thing going after his immortality. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I love the this is wonderful, this is wonderful, this is terrible. What have I done? What have I love that, just that flip of the switch with Ivo. This is some cool stuff here with the psychology of this madman.
John, at the end, and this, you mentioned the silence, Jim. I really liked at the end that we know that John knows that Gypsy's alive.
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool piece too. It just I love this whole idea of her reconnecting with her family, her being protected. I started remembering more and more of where this story goes as we got towards the end of this issue. But it really does make me anticipate the next one. I've been trying to stick to reading these in real time as we've been doing these episodes, so I'm not doing a lot of, and what happens next?
Well, yeah, I know what happens.
Yes.
I don't know how it happens.
That's where I'm at too. And
I'm like, I know what happens.
Yes, but I'm enjoying that about this because the actual story beats of this, I'm like, oh wow, there's so much of this that I didn't remember, which is making this fun. Just because there is an unfolding mystery here that I'm like, oh yeah, this ended up taking that.
As we've gone deeper in this, I've realized how many times I've reread Crisis. And how many times I've reread Zero Hour, and I had not reread Legends in close to 40 years. So it was like, oh, is that what? Okay, that as things, what happened because of the other books, but you're like, I haven't read this actual storyline in so long. How did it happen, kind of thing.
Firestorm. We already started talking about this one, so let's go ahead and jump to it. This is another one I mentioned sleeper hits as far as Cosmic Boy. I forgot how enjoyable Firestorm was with the debate between Ronnie and the Professor. I feel like this,
right?
We talk about divides and being one of the things. I think this is very grounded in reality when you're taking a look at where these two are.
Well, it's Ostrander and O'Neill.
Brilliant.
O'Neill is editing the book at the time. He's also editing the Bat books at this time, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So we got a solid writing and editorial on this. And we end up hitting some subject matters that could have been left as underlying and not really brought to the forefront like they are. Because, this guy, what's hilarious here is the Professor forgets that not 2 issues later, he forced Ronnie. There was no communication. Ronnie's in the shower getting ready for a date, and suddenly he's there.
Yeah.
Which I guess gathering from that and from that didn't happen very often. That the Professor did not initiate. The Professor was not in situations as often as Ronnie was to find problems.
Well, one of the things that I loved about this turmoil between the two of them is the Professor's under the influence of Godfrey.
Right.
So, and I thought that was
and Ronnie isn't.
And Ronnie isn't. So Professor's got some of that Godfrey influence going on there, but he's still intelligent enough to not. So I love that you can see the conflict of him going through, going through this process. And in a way, this issue, how Ronnie handles it helps him fight the Godfrey influence.
Well, yeah, and the Professor is being influenced by Godfrey, but he's not gone to the mob mentality. He's still got enough will to prevent him to going over the edge, but he's still questioning, even his own very existence. I mean, he contemplates, suicide later on in the book to prevent Firestorm from existing. And then we had the return of Hawk. And I don't know if Hawk is really, I'd have to go back and look. Remember, Dove dies in Crisis, and Hawk goes off the deep end without a Dove. And they end up bringing in a secondary Dove character later on. But that's one of the reasons that he becomes Monarch in the Armageddon 2001 storyline. And of course, that was a rewrite. It was supposed to be Captain Atom, but they rewrote it because it got leaked on the internet that it was going to be Captain Atom. It was going to become Monarch. So they decided to change it up to Hawk. But it shows how far he was as a avatar of the Lords of Chaos.
Yeah.
At this point. But that's only my big issue with it. I mean, I was ROTC in college myself. We had no M4s or M16s on campus. So I don't know where Oster got his idea that we'd actually have arms, but yeah, we didn't have. And I was there in the 90s. So
well, I'll tell you, that is a clear drawing of an M16A1, which is what they would have had back then. And I was happy to see that. Yeah. I was very happy to see the correct weaponry. And every ROTC unit I know, you get your ammo and your weaponry from a neighboring, from an area armory. So from a National Guard armory, BG, we had the armory right there in town. So it was just down the street. But again, I did chuckle with this, and I love the fact that, the ROTC is like, oh no, we're on your side with this one. They weren't influenced by Godfrey about the anti superhero. They were on the other side. And again, it's showing the two extreme sides, Oh yeah. The Godfrey on one side, you've got Hawk and the ROTC on the other side. Both of them are wrong. Let's flat out say that.
We have an avatar of chaos, which is what Hawk is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have Godfrey, who is creating chaos. So we have two forces of chaos basically going head to head on a campus. And this is 86. I mean, we're only 10 years away from 10 years away from Kent?
Yeah.
I mean, so is it too soon to have had, this kind of visualization? But again, the fact that Godfrey said that they're supposed to burn all the books that have any mentions of heroes or a pro hero.
Yeah.
But of course, that the net got cast probably much wider than that as they start burning.
Oh yeah. But hey, they had they're burning a bunch of stuff there. And I loved that, again, you got the hero, Ronnie. I love the fact that without the professor there and the professor fighting Ronnie, he can't do squat. And I love that Hawk jumps in there and just starts beating people up. This was just a great, right here, this is a physical, violent superhero. So all the justification and everything Godfrey's saying, Hawk's doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Takes it to another level.
Yeah, Hawk is, if there's anyone that is the true straw man argument for this, it's Hawk.
But then again, on the other side, you got the leader of that group, that everyday kid who's really drank the Kool-Aid, who's 100% in on the Godfrey stuff, who had his own issues before this that really got fed into it. So he's on the other side of it, where it's not going to stop with just burning books. It's going to start with burning the campus down. It's going to escalate to that point. And I loved seeing his escalation as well.
The fact that Godfrey says that his acolyte is in the moral right.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we're going to stroke this one. Although I had completely forgot that in DC Comics, Felicity Smoke was Ronnie's stepmother.
Yes.
So it's like, I knew when I was watching Arrow that Smoke was from the comics, but it was one of those I couldn't remember where. And the fact that she's here as Ronnie's stepmom just makes me, okay, this is...
That was actually, it was so funny. I had friends of mine who I would argue with about Arrow, and they were like, and they created that Felicity character, and she never existed before. I'm like, you're so wrong. It's a deep cut.
It's a very deep cut. Extremely deep cut.
Yes, and I actually love that about the character, that they didn't feel beholden to do it exactly like the comics, but I was glad that they didn't just make some fictional character. Go ahead and pull I love deep cuts. I think stuff like that was a good choice. Her use in this issue is brilliant, because I think the conversations between her and Ronnie, you needed somebody, a character, to talk through with him. Hey, you violated your partner.
Oh, and the fact it's a woman helps too.
Agreed.
I mean, yeah, this is, and we sort of alluded that to last episode that Ronnie was not adhering to what Professor Stein wanted, and was specifically going against his wishes and forcing him into being Firestorm. But remember, Firestorm becomes a group of 3 later on when the Russian gets added to the mix. So that gets great. I was not reading Firestorm. I had just read the issues in which they get the third member, but I know his power set ends up increasing it exponentially because he's the fusion man. It makes sense. Every time you add something, it's gonna add it to his power set. But you've got 2 personalities over and beyond the primary that's got to deal with it.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it was funny when I saw Felicity smoke. I was like, huh? Because that did. I was like, but then you're reading and they give you a quick explanation who she is. I'm like, oh, okay. It was one of those things where it caught my attention and made me go, but then you continue on. And I did love the fact that, Ronnie's initially like, hey, come on, I wasn't that bad. And she's able to break it down to him how much of a violation this was. And I love the fact that Ronnie's able to recognize that. And he has a genuine feeling of apology. He's genuinely sorry for what he did and he wants to make amends with his friend. I thought that was a really neat thing to have in here, but again, it was just that weird thing, see the professor going, with the gun about wanting to shoot Ronnie, and then he's talking about how he was going to kill himself, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to, and all of it's that Godfrey influence affecting the brain. And I loved how they really did some deep conversations in this book.
And sometimes it's always funny about what throws you from a book sometimes, because it's like with a professor having basically a Smith & Wesson J-frame with only 5 rounds really threw me for a loop. I'm like, okay, it's not a compact, it's a full-size J-frame. It should have 6 rounds, but that's the kind of thing. It's like, okay, what specifically throws people out of a book sometimes? It's like, oh, yeah. And then I had to go back and go, oh, it's a comic, Ken.
This is an example of, in such early days, something that is taking the themes of the story. You don't have to jump out of Legends and read this in order to understand the Legends story. That's not the point of this. This is an example of a title that is intimately affected by this in very, very deep ways and telling its own expanded story. It's doing so much of what Cosmic Boy is doing really, really well. And this is my favorite type of crossover, is when they do stuff like this. Legends is not one of the ones that I've gone back to over and over again. I think you referenced it earlier with Crisis. And some of it I'm seeing why I never went back to the same level that I've done with that. But I'm really glad to be looking at it now, because foundationally, so much of what the better crossovers do now does come out of taking a look at this and perfecting it. Because I think there were some good ideas here, and this is an example, I think, of a very good idea.
The thing is, I think Legends needs this issue. This issue does not need Legends.
Right.
As a lot of this, as we go into the next issue of Legends and Firestorm is much more prevalent, it makes more sense once you've read this issue, but you could have read this issue of Firestorm and not read Legends and know exactly what's going on.
Yes. Oh, yeah, 100%. And I did love how Ronnie handles the mob situation.
Oh, yeah.
That for me was absolutely brilliant, because, again, as they're starting first, the bullets are coming out, they're coming out flowers. And then people are hitting the oil slicks, for the pratfall. And you got even the pies in the face started popping up, and people are getting hit in the pies in the face, and people start laughing. They start finding these moments funny, and that's breaking the influence. That's breaking the mob mindset, breaking the influence of Godfrey. I thought that for me was absolutely brilliant use of the power, but especially love the fact that Ronnie didn't appear to the people. It was just happening. And I love the fact that Ronnie was smart enough to say, hey, I incite riot. I actually aggravate them, so let me hang back. Let me not let them see me. And part of that was for the professor. Part of that was what needed to be done. I thought that for me was some brilliant stuff. I've never really thought of Ronnie as having that kind of intelligence that he would do that.
Well, the professor is quiet through the entire exchange. Not until they split apart again does the professor chime in on anything. So, this is all Ronnie. This is all making his own. A lot of times, early issues of Firestorm Like Ronnie couldn't figure out how to do things because he needed the professor to explain molecular manipulation. Like he would not know what the components of water were or something. Mm-hmm. So but here he's gotten more familiar with the skill set because this is the second run of Firestorm. This is not the original Firestorm run. So this is why the numbering's so much lower. Yeah. It's volume 2.
Now, the other thing I liked about this sequence was they're sitting there, the cops, half of them were on the side of Godfrey. I love the fact that the cops were like, who do we help? Because half of them want to help these rioters. Half of them want to stop. And they were in a quandary as well. So you've got the rioters or thing, you got the police, and then you got that. Then of course you've got your ROTC and a Hawk above ready to start railing down, opening fire on innocent civilians. I loved the tie-ins that they did with this and just the multiple connections, but also it really does show Ronnie's power set that he can take, because they're firing, probably full auto, and he's able to get those bullets and turn them all into the daisies as they're coming out the barrel. Then same thing with the bullets. He's turning the bullets into water, so, that they become a squirt gun, And then, of course, the pies. I love just the pies just started hitting people in the face with the pies. That was absolutely wonderful.
The violation of the professor is something we should talk about because one of the things I love here, you've got a relationship that has been damaged on both sides now. Professor pulled a gun on him. You know what I mean? And it's something that a lot of times it's easy to like, Ronnie was wrong, Ronnie was wrong, Ronnie was wrong. Professor was ready to shoot Ronnie.
Right. Yeah. And himself.
Yes. Yes, exactly. But in that scenario, I don't know. I adore both of you guys. You're pulling a gun on me. We're going to have some problems.
Oh, yeah. That's going to be
even if I'm wrong.
In fact.
Yeah.
That's a tough one to come back from. Yeah.
But I'm saying, it's even if I'm wrong and like we've come to that conclusion where we're like, listen, guys, we're going to work on this together. That's still not going to be something that you flip a switch on. There's going to be some issues. I loved how deep this goes, where you walk away afterwards and like, these guys need a lot of work. And the trick is, if you want to keep going being Firestorm, that's pretty darn critical.
And we've proven that the professor can basically bring Firestorm to a screeching halt if he wants to.
Yes. This has really, really been terrific, seeing Firestorm and how good this is. Firestorm gets slept on a lot of times as far as its history as well as being a character who has had some interesting runs.
And again, it's funny, like stuff like this gets me wanting to read Firestorm because I've read some of the more recent stuff. Obviously I'm reading the current Fury, but it's all this Firestorm I never read at all.
Yeah.
So it's gotten me wanting to actually go back. And again, it's one of the joys I have of this app is I can go back and I can read, this older stuff very easily without too much difficulty. And
I really enjoyed Crisis Firestorm and Firehawk. And when the Psycho Pirate makes Killer Frost fall in love with Firestorm, I think all that's well done. But of course, now Wolfman wrote all that. So, but that was a real good period for Firestorm is before the reset. And even they put forth some of that new 52 Firestorm in Legends of Tomorrow in the TV show. So it made a little bit more sense at that point. So Firestorm's an interesting character, especially when they've got his power set very limited at the beginning, where you can only do inorganics, and Ronnie's not smart enough to do a lot of stuff. He needs the professor to talk him through the science of it.
The Blue Beetle. And you actually talk about Blue Beetle and the fact that this is a character that's endearing to you.
Yeah.
I remember this being Legends. If there's something that spun out of this, I started reading Blue Beetle out of this because
we're only on issue 9 of the DC run.
So exactly. So it was in this one, it was getting that intimacy of reading his book, getting a vibe for it. And there's no other way to say it. At the time, I remember talking to friends of mine and saying, you should read Blue Beetle. It's kind of like DC Spider-Man. And I was just, just in the sense that of the tone of the character, it was very different than your typical DC characters. And it was the best way. I grew up being a Spider-Man fan. It was reading this, I felt like, and I'm not cookie-cuttering Blue Beetle when I'm saying that. I want to be very, very clear. But there is a tone difference that isn't something that I was typically getting out of a DC book that I got from Blue Beetle, in the way that it was presenting itself, that felt a lot more Spider-Man than it felt your typical DC book. And I loved that aspect of it.
Well, Blue Beetle is basically Spider-Man meets Batman. All of Batman's money, all of Spider-Man's mentality. And Ted Kord is younger than Bruce, and he is a self-made big gazillionaire versus Bruce, who's he's a Nepo
Old
baby.
money. He's old money.
Yeah. But I liked Blue Beetle as a Charlton character, and I was really into his, and reading some of these. When we read this book, they talk about how he's defeated different groups in Chicago. I can remember when he fought the Madmen in the first few issues of Blue Beetle. I mean, I was reading it from issue 1 when this actually launched. And Ted Kord, I love Ted Kord. I was never a big fan of Maxwell Lord, getting rid of Ted with some lead poisoning. But, it was hard. It was hard to see Ted die going into Infinite Crisis. So, Infinite Crisis. So,
interesting thing about that you throw out there, you compare him to Spider-Man, Sean, because that's something we did big time with Jaime.
Sure.
I remember when we first started, when Jaime first hit the scenes and we were talking about the book, we did a huge comparison to Spider-Man. So it's kind of one of those things where the character is that connection. And that is one of the great things about this character, is the goofiness, is the humor side of it. He takes on these guys with his arms behind his back, and then later he's like, glad I didn't have to use the shoulder because his shoulder was hurting. So it's a combination of doing something the Beetle way, but also there was a logic behind it in that his arm was already hurting because he got winged in the shoulder the previous issue.
Now, Len Wein did write some Spider-Man, so we can see where some of that came from as well.
It feels a lot like that classic aspect to it. He also feels like one of us.
Yeah.
Which is when we see him in the fight, I love the joking. I love I love that he feels vulnerable but smart. Like there's cool things about him that makes him feel more grounded. Grounded, I guess, is the best way to say it. I love grounded heroes. And this was an era too where dark characters were getting darker and darker, during this time, to become like, that was kind of the edgy approach. It was a nice balance to have a character who was likable.
Right, yes. And especially likable in operating out of Chicago. So, and we didn't have any real heroes in Chicago at this point. It was very, one of those big cities that didn't have, and DC is trying to ground some of their books, as Marvel never took place in fictional cities. It was always in real cities. DC was always fictional cities. And we start getting, okay, these are New York heroes, these are Chicago heroes, these are Seattle heroes, and Blue Beetle being a Chicago hero.
The Chicago hero part was nice. I liked actually the real city, which DC traditionally was known for having these fictional cities.
Right.
And I enjoyed the aspect of this having, Chicago's an excellent point to make, because that's a Marvel thing as well, typically. I'm not saying DC is devoid of it.
East Stone City and Central City were the panache cities of the DC universe. That they were trying to play that placeholder for Chicago, for Flash and other Flash.
Now, I did chuckle, when the old lady starts beating him up with his purse after saving her.
Vicious.
Not that purse.
I love that, man. That cracked me up because she got a good hit. He knocked him back. I'm like, the old lady's doing better than the bad guys were.
Well, he wasn't going to punch her back.
Right. She, the cool part is, I remember my grandmother's purse and everything she kept, like it was a Swiss Army knife of a purse. It's
a bag of holding.
Yeah, I don't think this lady has a brick in there or anything like that. I think this is meant to be a genuine old lady with just a regular purse. But my grandmother's purse, it seemed to be endless.
Yeah.
And she had everything you could imagine in there. You know, planning for the grandkids, planning for herself. It was like everything was in there. She could, needle and thread. She could sew stuff up. So that's a heavy purse.
Yeah. She had the just in case.
Yes. That's.
Yep.
I forgot how much I loved the Beetle craft. It was such a cool craft. I love the underwater aspect. I forgot about the underwater base aspect of it, but that was something I thought was cool from the get-go. I grew up loving superhero vehicles, and I like that his feels different than what you would get from Batman or Green Arrow or any of these other characters. It was its own vibe.
Well, the fact that Cord Industries is located on Lakeshore Drive, it makes it, okay, he's on Lake Michigan.
Yes.
He can build some underwater base there. So I don't think it'd be real hard to figure out where if the Beetle keeps going into Lake Michigan over and over again. But, I would have thought if the Batmobile keeps going towards Wayne Manor, it would have figured it out too. But, Now, Kronos the Time Thief. Kronos was a JLA villain. For him to be switched over to Blue Beetle. And also, I think Kronos was one of the villains that was part of the attack against the Anti-Monitor, where they were trying to keep Krona from seeing the beginning of time. So the villains went to Maltus to prevent Krona from seeing the end of time, while the heroes all went to the antimatter universe to stop the Anti-Monitor from replacing himself as the Hand at the beginning of time. So this is really, I think, our first appearance since Crisis of Kronos, and for him to be related to a Cord employee.
Yeah.
Wow. Holy coincidences, Batman.
Yeah. Well, again, nice tie-in, nice connection.
Well, and the fact that she was stealing from Cord.
Yeah.
So, it was him. Here's the thing. He went to her because she worked for Cord. I liked that twist where it wasn't the fact that we've kind of, he had other family members he probably could have gone to. That was a deliberate, targeted choice in order to get the equipment he needed. I did like that because it took the coincidental nature out of it. Yes, it's a coincidence, but he went through his family tree and he's like, well, hey, because he didn't just go right to her. He went to the people that would help him and would potentially have ties to somebody that he could manipulate.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Which I thought was a good storytelling tool.
Yeah. Good villain there. That's a good villain. And it was one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool. And it's in the subtext of the Legends story arc, but it's really is a Blue Beetle story. And it's developing further Blue Beetle stories.
Now, Jim, are you familiar with who Dan Garrett is?
He was the original Beetle, right?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Remember, Dan, when Dan died, he did not give the scarab to Ted. That's why Ted became a more technology-based Blue Beetle versus Dan, who is more supernatural, but then we find out that's when they retcon what the scarab was for Jaime.
Right.
I didn't read a lot of the Jaime stuff. Do they reference Garrett in the Jaime run of okay?
It was actually Jaime was a good era because of the fact that it was during that legacy era where they were trying to acknowledge deep-rooted legacies of characters. Same thing they were doing with Adam. So it was nice that they weren't just creating new characters and throwing the past out the window. They were trying to acknowledge the rich legacy. So Scarab.
Ted was good friends with Dan.
Yeah,
and it was a real when he reading the first appearance of Blue Beetle in Charlton. His first appearance is a Captain Adam issue. It's a tie-in. It's a tie-in storyline. Captain Adam was an anthology book at that point, and Dan dying and not being able to give Ted the Scarab and Ted becoming Blue Beetle anyway was always an interesting storyline. There's an interview in the PBS Superheroes documentary going, how did you come up with the name Blue Beetle? And the originator goes, 2 words, Green Hornet.
Nice.
It's like, okay.
The Death Valley Sandstorm piece was pretty cool as well. How all that played out and this idea of a larger plan that was going on.
Right.
And this is how you build a story and keep people hooked into a series. And this is what a crossover should do. I never read Blue Beetle before. Oh, right. This is Blue Beetle? Well, I want to keep reading this.
I was going to ask you guys about this. If this plays out in Legend or if this plays out in Blue Beetle's continuing story.
It's Blue Beetle's continuing story.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was one of those things like, oh, this is kind of cool. I wonder what's going on here.
You gotta realize you're in the first 10 issues of Blue Beetle, so they're still trying to tie in a bunch of different storylines. And its question is how much they can bring in from Charlton, because the Blue Beetle characters, I mean, all the Charlton characters were introduced in DC in Crisis. So pre-Crisis, there was no DC Blue Beetle. So they've got to start tying in what are they going to bring over in Earth Sigma with the Charlton characters. We haven't had the question. We haven't had O'Neill's question. But there's a lot of stuff that's still up in the air on Ted Kord at this point because it's still early in the run, extremely early in the run.
Now, do they have any of the Charlton stuff like traded or collected?
You can get... There was a hardcover when they were doing their Silver Age collections, and it's called Action Heroes. And they're all the Charlton. So it's early Captain Atom, early Blue Beetle, but it's Ted Kord Blue Beetle. You're not getting Dan Garrett stuff because that was even before Charlton. So, because I can't remember who they bought the rights from. And those are all in their Action Heroes set. I don't know if that's still in print. But I know it was always on deep discount because only a few of us really cared about Charlton characters. So that's how I got mine. I got mine at 75% off, I think. So, but it's the conversion of the print is not the best. They didn't have the originals, so I think they pulled it off of photos of the actual comics themselves. So it's not the best print, but it's like that's better than nothing kind of thing. Yeah, it's Charlton Action Heroes.
Charlton Action Heroes. Okay, cool. Thank you. That'll get added to the list of my... Let's see if I can find this. I've got a list of stuff that I'm like, I've got to see if I can find this.
My wife was giving me a hard time about how many omnibus editions I still have in the cellophane on the shelf, including my Neil Gaiman Sandman Absolutes. It's like, oh, geez, I got a lot of books. Got a lot of books on the shelf. I still haven't figured out a good way to read an Absolute edition. I know, Sean, you had figured something out. I was looking at reading pillows, book pillows, and other stuff because it's like you can't crack those suckers open and you might break the spine. You got to read them at a particular angle. And I was like, how do you? I was looking at antique book setups to be able to read those. So,
yeah, I have a reading pillow that. That works for that purpose. I have to actually be very careful though. Like if I read at night, making sure it goes into a drawer. I have 2 cats, and one of them thinks the corners of anything are meant for eating, and I do not want that to happen with my Absolute edition. But it is my favorite way to read physical comics is to read an Absolute edition. The quality of those books, the page quality, it feels like a special tome. I love the fact they got the little ribbon as the book mark and everything like that. It says something about the overall view of comics as an art form. And I'm a broken record that I would be happy if everything was an Absolute. My wallet would not, nor would space, because I'd really have to almost have a second house for that purpose.
When I bought the Absolute Blackest Night, I had explained to the wife how many other books were going to go away, except of course my Absolute edition of the Sinestro War. That's got to stay, but everything else.
Anything else about Ted Kord that we want to talk about, guys?
Well, Ronald Reagan's the depiction of Ronald Reagan is pretty weak. Well, I like the Godfrey here. I like having the glasses back. I like, I do like the hair. The hair is very, very wispy. It's had that good 80s part. It's got some big 80s hair going on. But it's one of those that, Kronos, what's he doing? Where does he fit into the mix? That ends up coming back up. Kronos becomes a Blue Beetle villain for a short time. And Ted's got to figure out how to deal with it. And the fact that Ted just doesn't give a damn about what the police are going to say or the president. Ted's Ted. Ted's going to do what Ted wants to do. Yeah.
And I like the fact that his assistant is starting to buy into the Godfrey. She's starting to get affected by the influence. And you can see her wanting to hear more, saying, hey, wait, maybe he's got a point. And Ted's like, what are you, nuts? I'd love seeing that when you get these two people who are close to it. It's one of those weird things. I always wonder, how Alfred handled the Godfrey influence.
Right.
Because Alfred's smart and disciplined that I don't think he would get affected by it. But he also constantly worries about Bruce. So the Godfrey influence could, that could be the inlet, of a Godfrey influence is Alfred's concern for Bruce's safety. So that was something I was like, man, I wish we could have seen that.
And we saw in Fires, and we'll see that here in Legends. There seems to always be one person or a small group of people that are very much not influenced, that end up having to try to talk sense into the mob, the ones that have been influenced by Godfrey. How does that work? How well does it work? What are the repercussions of said defense? Because Godfrey he's in turbo mode as we get to issue 4. So we're halfway through Legends. And how are things going to be as we roll into the overarching book?
The nice part about Blue Beetle is that it does leave us in a place where it's setting up for the next time you're going to see Blue Beetle is in Legends. So go over and read Legends and come back here for more. That was really well done. I am looking at the cover right now for Legends 4. I've said this before, I'm a broken record. I'm remembering how Byrne happy I was back in this era.
This is when Byrne was firing all cylinders.
Yes.
He had done well in the X-Men books, and we talked about, I was not as much of a fan of his style then as I am in his style at this point. I think he's come into his own. He does this, and then he does Next Men for Dark Horse, and he has a run on Fantastic Four. His look becomes very iconic on some of these characters. You got the Byrne Superman, you got the McGinnis Superman, and then and the Kurt Swanson. There's some Superman designs that are very iconic. Swan, Byrne, and McGinnis, I think, are the three that really, really resound with people on this is what Superman should look like.
And with this cover, I'm glad to see Beetle on the cover. I'm glad to see, Black Canary. And it looks like that's also Guy Gardner.
It's Guy Gardner, yeah.
Based on the boots. So I'm glad to see, other than just, Superman, Flash, and Batman, they're tying the other heroes who are directly associated with the Legends on the cover.
We're into issue 4 of Legends, and we really have only seen Superman very little. We saw him in Cosmic Boy and in passing in previous Talking to the President. That's it. Superman really has not taken action in Legends up to this point. And of course, the crossovers between 4 and 5 have some very strong Superman influence in that.
Star City and that Count Vertigo bit was really well done, because I actually was showing my wife when I was reading it the Black Canary, because that's such an 80s outfit.
And this is my guilty pleasure. This is my favorite Black Canary outfit.
Yeah.
I like Disco Canary. I love the boots. I love the look. I did not think fishnets and a halter top really worked well to kick an ass unless you're Wonder Woman. And this look, I think, is what. Also, I was a big fan of the headband Supergirl look as well. So, which is the same period. Yeah, the headband Supergirl. But my wife's like, what? I'm like, yeah, here you go.
Well, here's the thing with the headband, it is functional. Because you think about it, if she's got the big hair going on, and especially if that's a wig, the headband really helps lock it down. So
yeah, I'm trying to remember. This Dinah does not have a wig. Her mom had a wig. She is blonde. So her mom was not blonde. She wore a wig. And remember, her mom, this Dinah, well, no, that's a question. We're post-crisis because remember the pre-crisis Earth 1 Black Canary was an Earth 2 transient. She had come over from Earth 2 and was operating because she's the daughter of the of the Justice Society Black Canary, who has no powers. She just knows how to kick ass. This one, she knows. She got both. She got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Count Vertigo's always got a weird superpower. It's one of those. How effective is it? Until you're that person who's got an inner ear problem and realize exactly how problematic not having your balance would be.
Yes.
So,
and again, I love this sequence where she takes him down, does the right thing, and then you got the cops like, hey, you're under arrest. You're violating policy. And again, that influence between the two police arguing with each other.
Right.
Hey, she just saved us. What are you doing? And how it turns even
it
darker.
Turns ugly fast.
Oh, big time, to the point where he shoots his own partner and then blames Black Canary for it. I loved how this played out. And then, as this is going on, it was absolutely brilliant, and then you flip the page and there's Darkseid and Phantom Stranger. I was like, oh, this is so cool. I love this. This is awesome.
Yeah, I was not expecting the cop to die.
No,
I had forgotten that happens. And it's very much, where's the blame? Who are they going to blame? It's the fact that Godfrey's ability is allowing these people to disassociate themselves from their own actions.
Yeah,
becomes very prevalent. I mean, we have basically turned a corner on this because we really haven't had anybody really die as a result of Godfrey's Macro Man, but from Godfrey's influence until this point.
Yeah.
And this is when things start to take a real hard left turn on whether they allowed to have. And Darkseid points it out. I mean, the fact that Darkseid is on Earth with the Phantom Stranger tells you exactly how important this event is to the overall plan that Darkseid has.
The Phantom Stranger and the Warlord sequences were really, really good, where he was talking about that world and the legend of the Warlord there. Now we're getting below the Earth's surface. It's like, well, you've done everything else. I love this idea of that it being all-encompassing.
Yeah. But I love the fact that Darkseid's, oh, yeah, I forgot about those guys.
I know, yeah.
Thanks for reminding me. They decided to take care of that.
Yeah. Wait, it is one of those. It's like, Phantom Stranger, whose side are you on?
Keep your damn mouth shut.
Yes.
It's like, oh, by the by, if you talk about Rand, Adam Strange is out there. You should probably send somebody out there to take care of that.
Yes.
But yeah, Desaad. I'm looking forward to rereading the Warlord issues because these are the only Warlord issues I ever read. Where these cross, I never read Warlord. It was not. I very much saw him as a He-Man ripoff. Even though he does predate He-Man, but still, I was not interested. I was not interested in this, nor was I interested in Amethyst. I read only the Crisis crossovers of Amethyst. I had no need for Gem World or any of that. But I'm looking forward to rereading these Warlord issues just to see exactly how they pan out.
Yeah, it's what little I've read about Warlord. I love this. Again, as we all just said, like, Phantom Stranger, whose side are you on here? But it did make me wonder, is this a setup for Darkseid's fall? Is this town? So that was, again, it was one of those things where I was reading it, then I was like, ooh, I wonder, what's going to happen here? And again, this crossover did a brilliant job with getting people wanting to read the other stuff. So if you're not reading Warlord at the time, this is giving you an interest to go pick it up and see how it continues.
Well, it kills me instead. that Darkseid. I would not want to be around at Apocalypse during annual review time because it seems like Darkseid's always threatening. Yeah, it's not about bonuses. It's not about pay increase. It's about do you get to stay alive for the next year? Like, oh yeah, you fail me. Yeah, you're dead. Byrne's Joker.
Yeah.
I gotta say that I know that he appears in Man of Steel, but this Joker is gotta be right up there with an O'Neill Joker.
Mhm.
This is a great depiction of the Clown Prince of Crime. I mean, I've got to say that I had forgotten exactly how much I enjoyed Byrne's rendition of the Joker.
Yeah, and later versions of the Joker, I love, but there is for me with that big deep chin and just just the way he goes into there. I was like, okay, Joker. I always will grin with it. And again, it did initially throw me off that he's got the Shirley or Fungus, whichever one you want to call her, instead of Harley. But then I'm remembering Harley comes a lot later in life.
Oh yeah, she's a creation of the animated series now.
Yeah, so it's Harley has not been created yet, so it's neat to see a female version, another female out there, with another Joker girlfriend out there that's not Harley. But it did just it does lay a pretty good groundwork for the introduction of Harley for Joker to have a permanent female,
a sidekick of some sort. Yeah. What kills me is that the joke in every panel that Byrne draws of the Joker, his mouth is wide open, except for the time when he gets knocked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question. Joker is either smiling or talking the entire time. And then remember, Jason's still in the hospital at this point. So Batman's operating on his own.
I find this Joker interesting, especially when I love the name. Like, this is almost a James Bond girl's name with the fact that she's like, this isn't my name, it's this, and it's like, oh my, it's such a Joker. This predates Harley Quinn, right? Where we're very used to Harley being like the sidekick. In this case, the girl who is drawn to the Joker, what did she say her name was again? I gotta look.
Fungus Souffle.
Yeah. Like, which is such, this Joker was so over the top. And I forgot how much I loved the Joker from this era, because it was silly but scary at the same time, which is an interesting combo that works with the Joker with the right writers. Again, this is an era where we're shifting from the birthday cake Joker to this era where he's getting more and more dangerous. And this totally fits.
And she's also equally crazy as Joker. This is conceptual artist.
Yeah.
That's why she's got to go with Fungus, because no one would go a conceptual artist named Shirley. So Fungus Souffle is much better for that. And their exhibit is a bunch of dead bodies. And I'm like, okay. And she's happy with it. So it's, again, equal side on them is crazy. And I love the fact that the first thing he does is back up or I'll blow her away. He's like, he's going to kill his little, Fungus Souffle without a problem. And he would have.
I do love Byrne's Batman. It was thinking back to that era and what Byrne was doing with Batman at this time. Mm-hmm. I remember he did I don't know if either of you guys read any of this. He did a 3D Batman graphic novel at that time, which was really cool as a concept, and it was Byrne art. And it's so, anybody listen to this, it's well worth looking at, just because it was I love experimental comics where you're doing things that just like, this is some wacky thing. There was this was Batman Elseworlds era where you're starting to get those kind of stories and experimentations. Digital Justice came out. It was an all digital comic, which we take for granted nowadays, but the story leaned heavily into the computerized future and what they thought it was going to be. And Byrne did a 3D Batman graphic novel, and it's Byrne artwork in 3D in an era where I loved his X-Men run, so I think we're in a different place there. But when you take a look at, you're right, his evolution when he came over to DC, he was making some noise and was upping his game. And I think all your best artists do this, where you can look at different eras of their career, and this was him trying to make a statement of, exclamation point of "I'm John Byrne,"
Right.
and which
This is my look.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, it seemed like he was still trying to emulate previous X-Men artists on his run of X-Men. That he was still trying to do the colon stuff. He was still trying to emulate those who had come before him, and so it wasn't nearly as jarring. And I think this is where we start seeing in Man of Steel, where he is coming into his own style, and then into Legends as well. When we started looking, when I was rereading this, I was starting to, fanboy rage was starting to kick in on page 9 because I thought that green creature was Gar.
Yeah.
And at this point, Gar can only emulate real creatures. And I'm like, well, he didn't do his homework. Realizing then on page 10 that it's Guy, doing his thing. Yeah. Of course, if Guy's got to come up with the most frightening thing that he could come up with to get rid of Miss Magnificent and her pretty boys.
I loved how this played out, where they're showing the heroes aren't, abiding to the presidential order.
Right. Well, when was Guy listen to anybody?
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
and same thing with Bruce. He wouldn't listen to that. But I did love how they just kept going from one hero to another hero, then to Beetle, and they just started just showing they're not going to take, they're going to do what they need to do. That's right. What heroes do. And I don't know if Miss Magnificent and her pretty boys ever appeared again, but I love that they get in there, they show them, knock it out, and then you get Guy being Guy. This was, again, just a great little boom, 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 1, 2, 3 punch, because then it goes into, Beetle versus Kronos. And I love that. I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I love how they're just doing hero, constant fighting going into it.
The Green Lantern.
Yeah, I was just gonna go there.
Yeah, these operations like the Ohio State University, I think they're the only ones that exist, so.
You rolled out that red carpet, didn't you?
Yeah.
Guy in this, I really like Byrne's Guy Gardner. I've said it last episode, and
I know you guys don't like the moon boots, but I honestly, Guy's Green Lantern costume's always been my favorite of all of them. Mm-hmm. And just the overall look, he's rocking the turtleneck just like the Fam Stranger does.
Yeah.
Which kills me. He's wearing a turtleneck, but he's still got the tidy leggings and then big old boots with buckles on them. But it is so a more tight look, more of a fascist look that Guy is. I mean, he is still suffering from his brain trauma. So he's out there in left field doing his own thing. I should say right field. And he's got his own idea of how being a Green Lantern is going to be, and his way is the right way and everybody else is wrong.
Yeah. And again, with the Guy look, I really don't have a big issue with it. It does make me chuckle, especially, the hair, that's always going to make me chuckle, but I do like, the attitude, and especially because they've explained, where this is coming from, and he's one of those characters that, as a Green Lantern, they've really done some really cool stuff explaining who and what Guy's really about.
Yes.
To the point, current stuff, they really went back and kind of, I don't want to say retconned this stuff, but also did kind of explain some of Guy's boisterous, some of his over the top stuff is to draw attention to himself, to pull the fire away from the other people. He wants people to attack him, not the other people. And I like that explanation of who Guy is, because it does fit the Guy Gardner that they've come up with, currently.
Go ahead.
Have you guys seen the second trailer for the Lanterns series?
I have not seen the second trailer. I have it queued up, actually.
Yeah. Nathan appears in the second trailer.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's interesting how that one's going to play out. So, yeah, you guys need to watch that when we get done recording here. It's pretty good. I watched it last night, as I could still not get to sleep with my jet lag butt. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. I hope it makes some noise because Green Lantern is such a cool concept. We've got to get that on TV and get it right.
Oh, there's some actual green in the second trailer.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
So yeah. I was like, oh, somebody got smart because we need to explain who these guys are and what they do outside of Hal just flying around. So we see Kronos back into the mix.
I forgot the free male robot was associated with him.
Yeah, I originally was like, is that Big Barda? And I'm like, oh no, it's not. And stealing antique clocks. I mean, come on. How you going to fence those things?
Yeah.
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 But I do like the fact that he had the storage equipment. I don't know how he was going to get out with them. But he did have the storage, the special storage box inside the Android that he could put the clocks in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Such a Batman. It's such a Batman villain kind of thing to do. I'm going to steal clocks because there's so much money in clocks.
I think part of it was he was stealing it for his little lair because he's obsessed with clocks. I don't.
He needs new decoration.
Yeah, I think this is going to be decoration for the lair.
Here's where Godfrey's plan's working brilliantly. It's the villains are like running off, and the police and security are completely uninterested in them. They are focused on the fact that there is a hero that's operating without the presidential order. Nobody's going after Kronos at all.
No, and the thing is that, there's no presidential order telling supervillains. That's just supposed to be natural.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, it's where are we going here with what's going on? But also, would local law enforcement enforce federal mandates? I mean, I would almost go, isn't that the Fed's problem to deal with, not ours? But that doesn't work as well with the storyline.
No. Jurisdiction, but again, all it would take is the local government to say, to comply along with it. And then local law enforcement would be, have jurisdiction over it as well. So it's, you have the presidential mandate that then the local can adopt it, into their own thing. So it could be explained away very easily. But again, I do like the fact that, how, one, the cops aren't going after the bad guys. They're only going after the heroes. But then they also, periodically, they've explained that by saying, if it wasn't for you heroes influencing these people, they wouldn't be villains. So it's your fault that they're stealing.
That's always been a Batman. It's been an ongoing Batman underlying story. Would his rogues gallery exist if he didn't exist? Yeah. Chicken and egg kind of mentality. But I do love Blue Beetle going, it's just getting a little redundant. This is getting old even for him. It's like, okay, I need to get back into the Beetle and get out of Dodge, before something else happens.
The Dr. Fate, honestly,
Dr. Fate.
The introducing his wife and Kent and the whole concept of fate being this thing that takes him over. I loved Dr. Fate as a kid. It was the JSA JLA crossovers. He was one that stood out because he was so unique. And Byrne's rendition of him is just powerful. But I loved that they went so deep into his wife and the lore and what that looks like, that when he puts on the mask, he becomes something else. And I love that she's like, this is a burden. It's emotional. It is something that she has to live through, that he has to live through. I love stuff like this, where there's a creep like Dr. Fate is so cool, but there's a creep factor to it. And I remember this is something like this whole sequence as I was reading it, I'm like, oh, I forgot about this. But the second I started reading it, you better believe I remembered it as I was reading it. I was like, oh, I remember how cool I thought this was. And it still holds up as being every bit of that. You want a Dr. Fate primer as far as why Dr. Fate is cool? This issue has it right here.
Well, this is first appearance of Dr. Fate post-crisis.
Right.
So this is first Dr. Fate. No, I mean, they hadn't decided there was going to be a JSA or not because all those JSA heroes get lumped in. And remember, Dr. Kent Nelson had a half mask during some of his time with the JSA because he was sick of being controlled by Nabbe when he was wearing the mask. So he had a half mask that didn't give him any extra powers. He just had the powers of the amulet. And here, it's not Kent and Nabbe. We've got, at this point, there's a third personality. There is Dr. Fate, who's basically an amalgam of Kent and Nabbe. Nabbe is not the primary driver, or they have not defined him as the primary driver of Dr. Fate. That Fate itself is a personality that is a combined personality once he puts the mask on. But Dr. Fate, I mean, his ability set, we see him again in Swamp Thing 50. And that's where Dr. Fate in the new Sigma Earth really gets his own. Now, we end up later on, Kent and Isna become a combined entity to get an androgynous Fate, which is a real strange. I can't remember who writes that. I wasn't sure if it was O'Neill or not. But yeah, it's a real interesting take on Dr. Fate post-crisis before they end up before we have the female Dr. Fate for a short while.
The exploration of Dr. Fate has been something. He's a character that I wish people latched onto more, because I've enjoyed the various series that have explored the character. I feel like there's something really interesting here. And it is one of those that I think has had a cult following at certain points in time, but has never really grasped a larger mainstream audience.
Right.
And I wish it had, because I dig so much about this.
He works best as a supporting character, much like the Spectre, because the Spectre series did not really work real well. Then even when it was Hal, it didn't really work. Dr. Fate's book, it's one of those, they seem to not do real well on those mysticals. That they're better as part of an overarching magic piece, books of magic or Justice League Dark, where those type of books work better for these mystical characters. I like Dr. Fate's 2 appearances in both the Superman animated series and Justice League, and they start bringing in Cthulhu-style mythos into the mix. That I think he's well done there as a supporting character, especially since Superman has his weakness to magic.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's added a whole twist to that character. Suicide Squad in this.
Yeah.
And I really liked seeing Flag in this one, because I'm so used to the exploding brain. I forgot about this, where he was like, no, we made an agreement with these guys.
Yeah.
We're going to follow through on the agreement. Very early days of all of this.
Yeah. Well, remember, it's Colonel Flag, not General Flag at this point. So,
right.
Yeah. It's very early. And the fact that he's willing to give the wall the middle finger, going, no, I made a promise. I've got integrity. I'm not a flunky like you, and I told them that if they did the mission, they'd get out. So here you go. They did the mission. The fact that Captain Boomerang just immediately goes into
full boomerang mode.
It's like, okay, what are we going to do now? Yeah. Godfrey coming back. Now we're at Times Square, basically, with Godfrey. He's got his whole crew, and he's now, my moral imperative is more important than anything else. And that's what he's able to preach to his followers. And of course, no one blinks an eye when the Warhounds show up.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Warhounds. Yeah. Of course he's got some war. Wait, where'd these come from?
Well, when does it take like a part of a person to become a warhound?
Well, no, he says
like,
who will be the first to become a warhound, not part of a person. The person's becoming the warhound.
Right.
Yeah, the Warhounds Legends first appearance of Warhounds. So I don't know the background, because remember, it was parademons all the way up to this point.
Right.
With Darkseid. And we really don't have a whole lot of Warhounds once after 0 Hour. So was this a short term, apocalypse style creature? Does somebody need to become a Warhound? I don't know at this point.
Yeah.
You sort of allude to it.
Yeah, who will be the first to lend his heart, his mind, his soul to the cause of a new America? Who will be the first to become a warhound? So when I read that, I was like, yeah, at first I thought it was just some technical robot. I'm like, oh no, people are sacrificing themselves to become a warhound.
It would not surprise me with Darkseid. Would not
Right.
surprise me in any way at all.
This is also where he turns on the president and turns on the president hard. So the president has been a tool at this point, has accomplished his goals. Now it's like we're getting the president out of the way and I'm fully taking over because the president has now spoken out against him. So he's no longer useful. He's getting in the way. And this shows the depths of Godfrey's power. I've got to say, Byrne's artwork on Godfrey, the maniacal, twisted nature of him, like it's fully on display here. He's perversely taken control, and you see it in his face. This is really strong artwork because if you didn't know who Godfrey was before, you do now.
Yeah.
Really
No
well.
question.
Yeah.
No question he's the bad guy, too.
Yes. Oh,
And again, I love how he's twisting stuff and making it, the concept of a government that does not represent its people does not serve its people. That right there is a solid concept where you're like, hey, if the government's not working for you, there's something going on here. They're not truly representing you. And then he goes, they must be evil. Let's throw them over. I love just how he takes an ideology that's been throughout history about, representing of the people, by the people, for the people, and let's twist it, and bring back that overthrow the government now. And I loved just that little notion there. And, and that's, and even the people like, what, talk to us, tell us what to do. We'll do it. And that's when he brings in the Warhounds. I loved how Godfrey's just, playing the game here, manipulation. It's not just a subtle, okay, you are going to die and become a Warhound. No, these people are stepping forward saying, yes, I will become a Warhound. I will do this for you, Godfrey.
The more followers he has,
the
greater his skill set is becoming and how more powerful he is becoming. So as we're in New York at this point, he's got more and he's got more people and more people are following him and he's able to exert his influence into a larger and larger scope.
The Flash bit, I really enjoyed seeing when Beast Boy got involved. Wally being like, no, you don't understand. You can't help me beat him. I have got to maintain this legend. This is something that we're building off of this idea of the legacy of the Flash is on me. I have got to keep the legacy of the Flash going. If you help me beat him, we are not doing that. It's got to be me beating him. This idea of where Wally's at right now is really, really strong. He is not as powerful as Barry because of what's happened to him.
Right.
And it's his whole point in taking this over so that what Barry put on the table does not die with Barry. And I just love that importance, that legacy. It's setting the stage for something very, very interesting with Barry and Wally, with the Barry concept and Wally and what was going on there. And I'm really glad they leaned heavily in that into this issue. It sets up really his solo run is incredibly interesting across the board. I often reference the Wade stuff, but leading up to Wade, everything leading up to that, they really explored some interesting stuff with the Flash and Wally and giving him a run. It's worth seeking out Wally's solo material from this point straight on through. It was an interesting exploration of a character and growing him to the lead character that we see today out of him.
Now, one thing I do love, or I'm kind of questioning, it looks to me that on that final panel with them, the Warhounds are running past Captain Boomerang and just going after Wally and Changeling. Or is there one coming after Boomerang as well? I can't tell.
I think that third one's going after Boomerang.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Boomerang's not safe in this, to be perfectly... Okay. That part I do remember, because what's happening is their fight's being derailed, and they are all targets. So that part not having read ahead, but remembering enough of the story, Boomerang's not safe.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Because this does lead into the genesis of, the idea of the Suicide Squad and all of that. So this is going to become an interesting point for Boomerang, in this particular scenario. I forgot about the Superman issues in this. I know that we're going to be looking at some really good Superman material coming up, but this end bit is meant to set up what's coming next. Is we're going to be getting some cool Superman stories.
Well, he's been. I mean, we've seen some Batman, and we've had some Batman books, but Superman's been completely, as I mentioned earlier, completely out of the picture up to this point, outside of just hanging out with Ronnie. And if there's anybody who's truly a legend that Darkseid needs to remove from the table, it's gonna be Superman. And how does Darkseid handle that? How does he erode the foundation of Superman's legend status? And one of the things here, I had to go look it up. Darkseid refers to it not as a boom tube, but a Stargate.
Yeah.
And that's because in the animated series Galactic Guardians, Superpowers Team, the Galactic Guardians, which is the last arc of Super Friends, Darkseid appears and he travels via Stargate and all that. They don't refer to it as a boom tube. And that was 85, and this is 86. So we haven't gone back to classic Apocalypse boom tubes and mother boxes yet. We are still operating on that, the Galactic Guardians stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like, why is it called a Stargate? And I remembered watching Galactic Guardians, and it's a Stargate there. It very much opens as a star, closes as a star. That's how Darkseid gets from point A to point B. Boom tube would be a little bit less stealthy. I
like the boom tube better. I like it.
Yeah.
But here's something else I just noticed. Yeah, I just realized. Once again, it's the Phantom Stranger reminding Darkseid, oh yeah, hey, you forgot about Superman.
You forgot Superman. By the by, here's another guy.
Whose side are you on, man?
Yeah, I love that this issue of Legends is called Cry Havoc. Next issue of Legends is called Let's Slip the Dogs of War.
Yeah.
So, yeah. This is, Phantom Stranger still, he's just playing Darkseid. And Darkseid doesn't even know it.
Yes.
He is so neat. I went back and watched the Showcase Phantom Stranger episode. And I love how that one is an actual period piece because it's late 70s, early 80s. And the Phantom Stranger and the Spectre one is a 70s timepiece. That's why I like a lot of these DC Showcase animated shorts were very much, hey, let's take a slice of time and throw our characters in there. So yeah, next issue is going to be the Warlord. So just in time for the He-Man movie to come out, we can
because again, I'm really looking. I'm not reading any of this before we record, so I haven't read any of the Warlords. I haven't read any going on further, so I'm looking forward to that stuff.
Yeah, I did last two episodes. I read everything much earlier, but I didn't have any time to read anything on my vacation and work trip. So I ended up reading all these issues last night. So I was very fresh coming into this. It's like, oh yeah, that's what happens. And I almost went into Warlord last night because I was like, hey, I forgot. I don't remember any of this. So should be interesting as we talk Warlord and some of the more eclectic books. We've got the Superman main book and Adventures of Superman as well in the next mix. So we see some Byrne Superman. We've got some George Perez Superman. So it's gonna be some real good looking Superman stuff. And these are like, I went back to look. We only have 2 issues between, I think, Legends and the start of the Death of Superboy timeline. So we're going to start looking at Cosmic Boy and what happens to Cosmic Boy as he tries to go back to the future and who he meets, which is a lot tie into our DCKO, recent DCKO stuff. So it should be interesting across the board how some of these earlier references of characters are that we've now seen in different iterations time and time again.
It's what I love about it is for a time traveling hero, this is very scary.
Yes.
I love the concept, and it's the way that they fully embrace it is super cool. I do think it's something that makes the DC universe unique in this era, in the fact that they had such a rich tapestry of the past and the future because of the longevity and legacy, and leaning into this as heavily as they did, it definitely makes the universe much more have much more of an edge than it had had previously, and it's cool to see this type of stuff play out.
Interesting. Yeah, there's 2 Warlord books between now and the next Legends, and it looks like Legends 5 was a full month. In the app, they've got those Superman books out of order, which makes me wonder what was printed and how they were printed. Because that Warlord, then we've got 2 Warlord chapters in here before the next issue, but that second Warlord is got a print date post Legends 5. So should be interesting how that all fits into the mix, or did they get their piece? And also, the last crossover is the Secret Origin Suicide Squad issue, which is after Legends. I mean, it's printed in May of 87 and Legends ends January of 87. So there's a pretty big gap between those.
Yeah, this is the layout of this is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this. And Ken, as always, thank you for joining us for this. I think this has been a very fun exploration of a series that I think gets lost for people. And this is
I used to always say I have a PhD in pre-crisis DC, but I think I have a PhD in pre-0 hour DC actually. So yeah. Once 0 hour kicks in, I start falling off. It's all about girls and cars after that. So
Nice work, Atom. What are these characters up to?
RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where you can find out details on upcoming episodes. We feed into Twitter/X and also our Facebook fan page. I am proud to shout out our Facebook group community. There's constantly news articles and blog posts and just commentary over the world of comics and related pop culture. Please feel free, if you are a podcaster or a blogger and you want to shout out anything that's related to our podcast or surrounding media, to feel free to post on there. All I ever ask of people is don't be afraid to shout us out as well. I appreciate the cross promotion. I feel like that energy is great, but I do want to once again thank all the people that post there. I check there throughout the week just to see all the news that's going on, also what people are thinking about right now, and it helps me a great deal just to, I think, just enjoy the week and just stay connected with what's going on. The About Us section of our show website is where you can find out how to connect with us on personal social media and gaming platforms. I'm a regular co-host on Is It Jaws, a film review podcast. Paul Spataro is the host, and we have a wonderful array of guests talking about film reviews. If you're into film at all, please check out Is It Jaws. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Mr. Segulin, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
Remember, we have the second printing of Absolute Green Arrow #1, 38% off, only $4.95. Absolute Power Omnibus Hardcover, 38% off, only $93. And Clayface Celebrity Dirt, issue 1 of 6, 48% off, only $207. Thank you, DCBS.
DC Finest, Sergeant Rock, The Rock of Easy Company, trade paperback, 616 pages. This includes Sergeant Rock's first appearance and his subsequent early appearances. $39.99 regularly, 48% off, only $20.79. That's a lot of reading for $20.79. I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support our show. Our next episode, Jim, you and I are going to be back, and we're going to be talking with Ken once again about Part 4 of our discussion of Legends. This time we're looking at Warlord 114, Cosmic Boy #3, Justice League of America 260, Blue Beetle #10, Warlord 115. We will see you in a week.
Bye.
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging bullets, time is here.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't mean anything by that.
I think
Sean,
you're
Jim,
how
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's our